Ah, so you've returned. Good. Let's just get into it this time. The last video's intro was like 3 minutes. Why do I keep doing this to myself?
With huge cojones!
Barring any controversies that came with it, GTA 3's massive success invigorated Rockstar. Yet even during its development, they had realized they couldn't solely rely on that success alone. Which is probably why they had the foresight to start work on a follow-up well before 3 came out. Rather than going for an expansion pack or a direct sequel though, the team decided to bring it back a few decades into the glamorous 80s. With heavy inspiration coming from Miami Vice of all things. Anyway, DMA, who during this time were fully absorbed into Rockstar and rebranded themselves as Rockstar North, spent a hellish 9 months making the thing. Though thanks to the stacks of cash they made with GTA 3, they were able to get themselves some actual star power in its voice cast this time around. Ray Liotta, Gary Busey, Danny Trejo, to name a few, and license a crap ton of popular songs. And the result of all that quick-ass work was Grand Theft Auto Vice City, released a little over a year after 3 in October 2002. Alright, let's get the hot takes rolling here. Vice City is my favorite GTA game. It is mostly the same gameplay and structure as 3, and the game world is about the same size too, yet every single aspect in this game is far superior in quality to that of 3. Well, almost all of them, but anyway, I found the come-up story far more compelling, the supporting characters far more interesting, and, get this, giving the protagonist a voice immediately makes them far more appealing. And I just love the glossy, oversaturated look and feel of Vice City. It's so unequivocally 80s, I can't not be drawn in. I still don't know what the hell they're talking about being inspired by Miami Vice of all things though. Not like it's flawless. The gameplay does carry over a good amount of the same issues that 3 had, though I still prefer playing this over 3. And some of the missions are almost impossible. Demolition Man does not fuck around. I'm not gonna lie though, the real reason why it's my personal favorite is what may be the greatest licensed soundtrack in any non-music game, period. God damn, look at all these choice cuts, it's fantastic. Who cares if they keep losing songs because the licenses keep expiring? After its release, critics and audiences also agreed that Vice City was indeed fantastic, and it ended up selling even more copies than GTA 3. But it wouldn't be the subject of this video unless it caused some sort of controversy. And boy did it ever. Now, disregarding hindsight bias and coming off the heels of GTA 3, doesn't that sound just a little bit weird? Despite the different setting and visual look, the gameplay was virtually unchanged, including the controversial aspects, so wouldn't another controversy just be redundant? Yeah, it would be. But stuff happened anyway, so let's just go with it. Again, there were the expected think pieces and analytical articles combing over the glorified violence and debauchery littered throughout Vice City, and they're also quite boring, so I went straight to the ones where all the yelling happened. And now I just wish I read all of those articles instead of looking at this garbage. Starting things off, a little over a year after the game's release, support groups consisting of Haitian Americans staged a massive protest at New York City's City Hall because they believe Vice City was, in their words, a cultural attack on the millions of Haitians living in the United States. How exactly did they come to that conclusion? Well, an ongoing conflict within the game is a street war between a Haitian gang and a Cuban gang, one in which you end up fighting for both sides rather than just one, but forgetting that for one brief moment to make this reasoning seem completely logical, there's one mission you do for the Cubans that involves participating in a gang war against the Haitians and stealing one of their drug vans, and as soon as you arrive to the urban battlefield, this prompt is displayed. Yeah, not very subtle, is it? This was all summarized in a CBS News segment that I, for the life of me, could not find footage of, though I did find the transcript. It obviously condemned the game for including this kind of hateful dialogue, and they even brought in an avid player of the game whom testified, I think you have to have a strong mind to be able to play this game and not want to go out and kill people. All this rallying eventually reached the powers that be in the city, and then Mayor and future outed shithead Michael Bloomberg threatened legal action against Take-Two if that phrase wasn't removed from the game. Not wanting to deal with that hoe-ass shit, Take-Two did just that, and this seemed to appease the poor Haitian protesters who were horrifically maligned in this travesty of a game. Unfortunately, that wasn't good enough for the Haitian American folks in northern Miami, as they filed a lawsuit against Rockstar, Take-Two, and the distributors for Vice City due to these genocidal statements. A few weeks after Take-Two said they would edit this stuff out, so, yeah, this might have just been for good measure, but y'all are a bit late to the punch here. The suers did realize their massive goof, though, and switched the lawsuit from a federal one to a state one, which they believe gave them a better chance at winning. And the trail goes a bit cold there, but considering they only asked for $15,000 in damages, and it seems the lawyer they filed the suit with was essentially Jackie Thompson 2.0, I'm gonna guess it was either quietly dropped or they just settled it to stop the headaches for a bit. Meanwhile, the Northern Miami Council had given approval for an ordinance to make selling and/or renting violent games to anyone under 18 completely illegal without explicit permission from their parents. Oh, okay, so this was a front. A-grade politics, man. Once again, the trail from there goes cold, but also once again, considering that GTA 3 had already provoked Walmart into doing something like this anyway, this just felt wholly unnecessary. And dumb. So 2 or 3 attempts at a big Hail Mary, and each time they turned right around and threw the ball the opposite way while breaking their forearms in 20 places. What could possibly undermine this nonsense any further? How about even more lawsuits stemming from horrific murder cases? Yay! First up, an 18-year-old named Devin Moore, a person with no prior convictions, had been brought in for allegedly stealing a car. I guess you could say they arrested him for and during interrogation, grabbed one of the officer's guns, shot and killed 2 of said officers and a dispatcher nearby, then fled in a police vehicle before being apprehended again a little bit later. Yeah. The other case involved a teenager in New Mexico named Cody Posey. No, I'm not making that up. Murdering 3 family members, putting them in a shallow grave, and getting arrested 2 days afterwards when the bodies were discovered. Double yeah. Both of these situations led to lawsuits filed by good old Jackie Thompson, where for both cases he cited GTA Vice City as the primary cause and driving factor that led to these murders. He argued these games trained and motivated both of the accused into doing such acts. The adult in this situation going as far as to allegedly say, "Life is a video game. Everybody has to die sometime." Which doesn't make any sense, but alright, I'm sure that's definitely a direct statement from them. As I did in the last video, I delved into the cases further to see what other motivations were much more likely to have been at play besides them video games. I mean, it's not like Thompson needed them since he did so well with that angle last time. But I digress. For the first case, I had a good amount of trouble finding explicit information about Moore, or at least anything like with the Salon article. During his trial, his attorney argued he was experiencing PTSD from severe childhood abuse, which might work as a defense with supporting evidence and evaluation. Problem is, they also used the violent video game warped his mind approach too, and the actual reason Moore gave for the killings were that so he wouldn't go to jail, so it's no surprise to learn the dude was found guilty anyway and sentenced to death a few months after. Good job, guys. On the other hand, Posey's attorneys put out a similar argument. The details of such were far easier to find and quite uncomfortable to read, yet despite also being convicted of first-degree murder, he was still tried as a juvenile, so a few years after being in prison, he got released back into society. Yeah, putting these 2 cases side by side, one could see some fishy implications. And Moore did divulge some details about how his trial apparently went down. All-white jury, any black jurors were struck down and replaced, the lawyer was scrambling to get the case together, and not to mention this all went down in Alabama. Yeah, he's painting some sketchy circumstances there. However, it's not like his verdict would have changed even if the jury was on the complete polar opposite of the racial spectrum. Cause it don't matter who you are, dude. You kill 3 people, let alone 3 police officers, you're kinda fucked. They also upheld the death penalty verdict back in 2012, and that hasn't changed as of this video, so meh. Posey just kinda disappeared off the face of the earth after his release, but I can't imagine he's had much of a better time. He may be a free man, unlike Moore. He also killed 3 people as well. That's gonna be attached to him for the rest of his life. The main point is, yet again, there's more to these murders than just, oh, they played Vice City and that's why they committed homicide. So basing an entire lawsuit around that is incredibly foolish. And doing that several times over the course of 3 years is just evidence of the petty biased agenda these pointless suits revolve around. And evidence that this person should not be practicing law. Luckily, at this point in time, every human being with a lick of common sense in the know about this crap was sick of Jack the Ripper going after this boogeyman too. I suppose you can't fault the guy for being passionate though, and he was in fact so passionate to pin the blame for these murders on the game and its makers, he got himself kicked off the Moore case and had his temp license to practice law in Alabama revoked. I guess doing those numerous press releases, especially the one where he called Sony's role in distributing Rockstar's games Pearl Harbor 2, I can't even finish that thought. Pearl Harbor 2. Just fuck off. Ironically, that case actually went through and even got held up for a couple of years, and any motions to dismiss submitted by Take-Two were rejected, though eventually they were granted summary judgment on the basis that the plaintiffs had no case, which they didn't, and said plaintiffs chose to drop it altogether on the basis that this was nothing but a huge waste of time. As for the Posey lawsuit, that got dismissed a year after filing due to New Mexico having no jurisdiction over Take-Two and crew, so Tommy Boy is 0-3 with a massive suspension to boot. Pearl Harbor 2. Alright, we're almost done, boys. Let's finish this off with something much sillier. Or infuriating. I don't know, it depends on your personal taste. Send me a letter afterwards of what you think. One of the game's many characters is the mysterious and manipulative Antipoilette, the leader of those oppressed Haitians I was talking about earlier. You only take a couple missions from her, namely collecting drugs, sniping some Cuban gang members, and using an RC helicopter to blow up their boats and any witnesses. Oh god, I remember that one. That was fucking annoying. Those controls are complete ass. At least it wasn't on a time limit like fucking Demolition Man. Anyway, that character was voiced by Yuri Del Harris, better known by us Hicks as Miss Cleo, the infamous psychic from the Psychic Readers Network. Not to be confused with the Psychic Friends Network, in that one is slightly less fraudulent than the other. Or slightly more, depending on how you view that bullshit. I don't know, call me on this toll-free number afterwards and let me know what you think. In her defense, she was little more than a performer there. I mean, if you look at those commercials, you can tell she's clearly self-aware about the whole thing.
Okay, I was wondering who the father of my baby was.
All right, let's take a look. The Miss Cleo DNA test.
Very seldom listen to your daddy about
No.
the ex, correct?
You're right.
Okay.
You're very good at this. Very good. You are
you.
I've been waiting to talk to you.
Oh, bless you.
Let me stop trying to be polite. You understand me? And the secret is yours, is it not?
He was with someone else.
And you are too.
And it's easy to see why she was chosen for this small role. Sadly, she passed away a few years ago, but the Psychic Readers Network were certainly not going to let anyone forget Miss Cleo, which is probably why they started suing anyone they thought were using that personality or basing other characters off that personality, including Rockstar. In their 10-page filing, they claimed Rockstar knowingly infringed on the character at the height of her popularity, going as far as to hire Miss Del Harris to voice it. They said they also owned the Miss Cleo personality and needed to protect their brand as such. They also claimed they had no knowledge of the infringement until after her death, and they offered side-by-side comparisons of both characters to further their argument. Whoa, back up there, Einstein. What the hell did I just read? Yeah, apparently for the longest time, them psychic readers were completely unaware of Antipoilette and the likeness to that of Miss Cleo. And to clarify, this lawsuit wasn't filed during the height of Vice City's popularity in the early 2000s, which would probably have been the most opportune time to file this lawsuit, even though you shouldn't have, but that's besides the point. No, this was filed in 2017. barely a year after Del Harris's death. Looking into things though, it's not too surprising since they were pulling this shit even before Del Harris's death, shutting down a French Toast Crunch commercial that had her play as Miss Cleo, cause, you know, the 90s are back, dude. Dunkaroos all the way, motherfucker. We gotta make as much money as we can so we can produce as many pieces of Miss Cleo merchandise as possible. Coffee mugs, shirts, pregnancy tests. That's just the tip of the iceberg as to why, in spite of those two completely worthless Jack Attack lawsuits, this is the stankiest thing on offer today. Now, I will concede that there are striking similarities between Auntie Poilette and Miss Cleo in terms of voice and personality, but there are barely any comparisons one could make beyond that. Why? Well, one is a psychic who will tell you who the father of your child is, and the other is a ruthless drug kingpin, or queenpin, that enacted the gang wars against those dang Cubans and hypnotized Tommy Vercetti into doing her nasty deeds. Rockstar was obviously inspired by Miss Cleo, but they obviously reinterpreted her likeness and personality to make their own character. Not even to the point of parody, because I'm pretty sure I didn't remember hearing an Anti-Poilette 30-minute special on the game's radio.
Call now for your free tower reading and fuck those Cubans, man.
I haven't found any info from the case after the initial reports, but given what I've revealed to your viewing eyes and other frivolous cases of this sort that we'll get to in the very distant future, I don't think it's a stretch to imagine this was dropped like a bastard child. Okay, I think that's it. As you can tell, I wasn't really happy with the controversies on offer today. Like I've said, it was fine for GTA 3 to have gotten shit thrown at it because it was the initiator, the originator, the bomb. It's a bomb! For essentially the same controversy to happen again, in addition to poorly conceived protests sparked by throwing context of a certain exclamation out the window like the aforementioned bastard child, followed by multiple idiotic lawsuits filed by an idiotic lawyer using failures of parents to push their shit-smeared agenda, and some money-grubbing scam artists, is just tiring. Like, we can all laugh at the woeful incompetence on display all we want, but at the end of the day, what did this all really accomplish? Larger exposure to the game, for one, which likely contributed to larger sales. Other than that, for as much shit that went down, not really anything. Just a big old pile of money thrown into an incinerator. Like that bastard child. 4 big cojones out of 10. So, what will be up next on the list? Surely another GTA game, if I'm not mistaken. The one with arguably the largest controversy of the entire series, correct? Well, sort of. It'll certainly be the largest controversy of this miniseries so far. But for once, it isn't a GTA game. It's something much more sinister. Pearl Harbor 2.